The laugh was what got people's attention first. Not the words, not the pointing. The laugh, sharp and loud enough to cut through the ambient chatter of 200 guests dressed in their best, standing beneath pendant lights that probably cost more than most people's rent. Nadia had that kind of laugh. The kind that wasn't just an expression of amusement. It was a tool, and on that Friday evening in the atrium of the Hazelwood Grand in downtown Toronto, she used it like a scalpel. The woman she aimed it at was standing just inside the entrance doors, still holding her coat. Her name was Reeve, 26 years old. She'd driven 3 hours from Sudbury that morning, hit construction twice on the 400, parked in the wrong lot and had to run 4 blocks in November. And she was wearing exactly what she'd worn to work that day. Dark trousers, a plain white blouse, her hair pulled back because she hadn't had time to do anything else. She wasn't dressed for a gala. She looked like someone who had just come from somewhere else, which was exactly what had happened. She was scanning the room, looking for a familiar face, when Nadia found her first. "Excuse me." Nadia's voice carried. It was meant to. "Can I help you with something?" Reeve turned. "Sorry, are you looking for the service entrance?" Nadia smiled, and the smile was the worst part. Sweet on the surface, sharpened underneath. "It's around the back. The caterers have their own door." The 2 women beside Nadia went quiet. Not because they were embarrassed, because they were watching. "I'm a guest," Reeve said. Nadia tilted her head. "A guest, yes, at the Hazelwood Charity Gala." Nadia let that sit for a second. "The tickets were $1,500. I know what the tickets cost, and you came like that." It wasn't a question. Nadia looked at Reeve the way someone looks at a wrong answer written on a whiteboard, with a kind of baffled, performative confusion, inviting everyone around them to share in the joke. A few people nearby had stopped their conversations. Someone laughed softly. Someone else looked away. Reeve didn't move. She didn't adjust her blouse or reach up to fix her hair or do any of the things a person does when they suddenly become aware of how they look. She just stood there, holding her coat, and said nothing. "The dress code was on the invitation," Nadia continued. "It's a black tie event. I don't know who gave you a ticket, but my name is on the guest list," Reeve said. "You're welcome to check." Nadia's smile didn't waver. "I'm sure it is, sweetheart." That word, that was the one that landed. The women beside Nadia laughed again, louder this time, and Reeve heard it and understood what it meant. That she was the entertainment for 30 seconds, that she'd already been filed away as something to talk about later over whatever they were serving at the open bar. She walked past them, no scene, no response. She just moved forward, found her table number at the registration desk, picked up her name card, and went to find her seat. The Hazelwood Charity Gala happened every year in November. It raised money for 3 youth arts programs across Ontario, and for the last 9 years, the organizing committee had been chaired by a woman named Carolyn, who was standing near the bar at that moment talking to the event's lead sponsor. The lead sponsor was a man named Gerald Okafor. Gerald was 61, wore a charcoal suit that looked like it had been built specifically for his body, and had a way of listening to people that made them feel like the only person in the room. He'd built a logistics company from a single delivery truck in Mississauga into one of the largest private freight operations in the country, and he gave a significant amount of that money away every year, most of it quietly. The gala had been his daughter's idea years ago, when she was still in high school. His daughter was Reeve. He didn't know yet what had happened at the entrance. He was talking to Carolyn about the arts program expansion into Northern Ontario, which was something both of them cared about. He had a glass of sparkling water, and he was nodding slowly, the way he did when he was genuinely engaged. Reeve found her table, set down her coat on the back of her chair, and sat down. She was at table 4, which was front and center. She tried to get her father to put her further back, near the edges, where she could come and go more easily. He'd overruled her. He always put her at table 4. A woman across from her introduced herself. Margaret from the Hamilton office of one of the program partners. Friendly, immediately, she asked Reeve how she knew the event. "My father's the lead sponsor," Reeve said. Margaret blinked. "Gerald Okafor is your father?" "Yeah!" "Oh, we've been working with his foundation for 3 years." Margaret looked delighted. "He funded our mural program. We did 14 schools last spring." "I remember that," Reeve said. "He showed me the photos. The one in Burlington, the kids painted the whole gymnasium ceiling. That was us, Margaret said, and her whole face changed. That took them 6 weeks. They were so proud of it. That was how the conversation was going at table 4, when Nadia arrived at the table 2 seats down. Reeve noticed her immediately. Nadia didn't notice Reeve, or if she did, she gave no indication of it. She was talking to the man beside her, laughing at something he'd said. Her silver dress catching the light every time she moved. She was effortlessly comfortable in this room. In a way Reeve had never been and had stopped trying to be. Reeve turned back to Margaret, and they talked about the mural program for another 10 minutes. The dinner was 4 courses, and by the third one the room had settled into that particular kind of noise that a well-fed, well-dressed crowd makes. A low, continuous warmth, conversations flowing into each other, the occasional burst of laughter from somewhere across the room. Gerald had found his seat by then, next to Reeve, and was working through his salmon when Margaret leaned forward and told him about the gymnasium ceiling. 6 weeks, he said. I think about that ceiling sometimes. I hope those kids know it's still there. We sent them photos last year, Margaret said. Most of them are in high school now. Gerald nodded. He was quiet for a moment, genuinely moved, and then he picked up his fork and kept eating. Nadia had noticed him. It was hard not to. He had the kind of presence that rooms organized themselves around. Subtle but real, the way certain people carry authority without announcing it. She leaned slightly toward the man beside her and said something. The man glanced over and gave a small nod. A few minutes later, during the pause between the 3rd and 4th courses, Nadia stood and walked toward Gerald's end of the table. Excuse me, she said, arriving at his shoulder. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Nadia Voss. My family's company is on the program committee. Gerald looked up, easy and warm. Of course, I know the Voss name. Your mother co-chaired the gala 2 years ago, didn't she? Nadia looked genuinely pleased. She did, yes. She speaks very highly of the foundation. Tell her I said hello. He gestured to the seat beside him, where Reeve was sitting. This is my daughter, Reeve. There it was. The moment moved in slow motion, the way those moments always do. Nadia turned, and there was Reeve, the same face, the same white blouse, the same pulled-back hair, sitting at the right hand of Gerald Okafor, who had just said the word daughter with complete and uncomplicated ease. For a full second, Nadia didn't speak. We actually met at the door, Reeve said. Her voice was completely even. Nadia was very helpful. Gerald looked at his daughter. He had known her for 26 years, and he could read her face like a weather report. He looked back at Nadia. Nadia's mouth opened. Yes, we did. I apologize if I came across. It's fine, Reeve said, and that was worse, somehow, than anything else she could have said. Not a confrontation. Not a performance. Just 2 words, delivered without heat, and then Reeve picked up her water glass and turned back toward Margaret. Nadia stood there for one more beat. Gerald watched her with the particular stillness of a man who has spent a long time learning when to speak and when to simply let silence do the work. It was nice to meet you, he said finally. Polite. Firm. The kind of sentence that closes a door. Nadia went back to her seat. The keynote was given by one of the youth program graduates, a 22-year-old from Barrie, who'd gone from a community painting class to a full scholarship at OCAD. She spoke for 12 minutes without notes, and by the end of it half the room was quietly undone. Reeve clapped until her hands hurt. Gerald leaned over during the applause and said, quietly, You want to tell me what happened at the door? No, Reeve said. He looked at her for a moment. Okay. That was the end of it, between the two of them. He trusted her to handle the things she wanted to handle. And she'd been doing that since she was old enough to manage her own problems. It was an arrangement that suited them both. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have predicted, was what was happening at the other end of the table. Nadia was not having a good time. The man beside her, whose name was David, had been on the program committee for 4 years, and knew exactly who Gerald Okafor was and, more relevantly, exactly what the foundation did. He'd watched the whole scene play out from the entrance to the table introduction, and he had the social intelligence to understand what it meant. He wasn't cruel about it. He just stopped talking to Nadia the way he had been talking to her before. The woman on Nadia's other side had pulled out her phone. The applause ended. The lights came up slightly. People began to circulate. Nadia found Reeve near the coat check at the end of the evening. She'd had 45 minutes to think about what she wanted to say, and she'd clearly spent them on something careful and considered, because what came out was specific rather than vague. "I was wrong," she said. "What I said at the door was dismissive and rude, and I'm sorry. That's it. That's all I have." Reeve looked at her. There was a lineup forming at the coat check, and someone had left a drink on the ledge behind them, and the room smelled like candle wax and winter coats being retrieved. "Okay," Reeve said. "I'm not saying this because of your father. I know you think that's true," Reeve said. Nadia was quiet. "You did it in front of people," Reeve said. Not angry, just accurate. The entrance was full. There were 15-20 people who heard that. "And you're apologizing to me here, just the two of us at coat check." She paused. "I'm not saying don't apologize, I'm just saying I noticed the difference." It was the most she'd said to Nadia all evening. Nadia didn't have an answer for that. She opened her mouth and then closed it again, which was probably the most honest thing she'd done since the introduction at the table. "Have a good night," Reeve said. She picked up her coat from the counter and turned to go. She was halfway to the door when she heard Nadia's voice behind her, not directed at her, directed outward, toward the small cluster of people still milling near the entrance. "Before everyone goes," Nadia said, loud enough to carry, "I want to say something." Reeve stopped. She didn't turn around. She stood with her back to the room, coat over her arm, and listened. When this woman came in tonight, Nadia was talking about her. Reeve understood that immediately. "I said something to her that was unkind and completely unfair. I assumed things based on how she was dressed. I was wrong and I was embarrassing, and I said it in front of people. So I'm saying sorry in front of people." The room was not silent. There was still ambient noise, conversations continuing, the coat check still running. But the people near the entrance had gone quiet. Reeve turned around. Nadia was standing in the middle of the small crowd, not looking at anyone in particular, or maybe looking at Reeve. It was hard to say. Her expression was not comfortable. It was the expression of someone doing something difficult without the cushion of feeling good about it yet. Reeve walked back toward her. Not all the way, halfway. "Thank you," she said. That was all. She meant it, and Nadia could probably tell she meant it, which was maybe the beginning of the thing actually meaning something, rather than just the performance of it. These things start somewhere. They start with the person who was wrong. Deciding the discomfort of accountability is still worth less than the weight of not saying anything, and doing that in public, without an audience of just one. It's a rarer thing than it should be. Reeve got her coat. She said goodbye to Margaret, who pressed a business card into her hand, and said she'd love to have her come see the Hamilton program sometime. She went to find her father, who was still talking to Carolyn, near the bar. Of course he was. And she touched his arm and he said his goodbyes, and they walked out into the November cold together, and the lights of the Hazelwood Grand went warm behind them through the glass. She didn't tell him what had happened at the coat check. She didn't need to. He would find out the way he found most things out, gradually, peripherally, from someone who'd been there. On the drive home somewhere north of the 401, Gerald asked her how she thought the evening went. She thought about the girl from Barrie who'd gotten a scholarship. She thought about the gymnasium ceiling in Burlington, still there, the kids who painted it probably walking past it in high school now without even thinking about it anymore. Which was maybe the best possible outcome, that a thing becomes so normal you stop noticing it. She thought about Nadia standing in the entrance, saying what she'd said, not because it was easy but because it was right. "Good," Reeve said. "I think it went well." Gerald nodded, watching the highway. "Yeah," he said. "Me too."